Let's dive right into this. I wrote the article, What Can the Vikings Carry Over from the Win in New Orleans? And I'm going to tell you what I wrote, and you tell me what you think. So, patience with the deep shots and running versus 7-man boxes. It's one of those things that is hard to spot on the TV cameras, I think, what type of safety alignment the other team has. But when New Orleans comes out and they've got 2 high safeties the whole game, right from the get-go, they're saying, we're going to put a guy over Diggs, and we're going to put a guy over Thielen, and we're going to make you march down the field instead of hitting deep shots. And even though everyone's happy with the way that it ended with Kirk Cousins, throughout that game, it makes it difficult for Cousins to drop straight back and just sit there in the pocket and let guys go through their routes and have to find spaces and zones. And there were times where he had that bad Kirk look to him. Yes. And I think it was the right strategy by the Saints, but eventually they got tired of having Dalvin Cook run them over, and in overtime, they get an 8-man box, and boom, you hit Adam Thielen. My guess is you're going to have to do that again.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you brought that up because it was like within the first 3 plays, if he had a ball that skipped like 10 yards in front of someone, it was like, oh man, is bad Kirk in there today? How he overcame that in a place like New Orleans against a Drew Brees, like at any time that Drew has the ball, you're like, man, he could score. Like you just feel like, oh my God, he could do it right now. You just never know. So for Kirk to overcome that in a stadium like that and to really just kind of shine, after that, he really shined the rest of the game to me. Like the way he played that game, really calm, took some sacks. I agree with Mike. Sometimes when you have a lead and you just want the clock to run, you're like, dude, listen, if it's not there, just take the sack. Nobody cares. The way he kind of progressed through the pocket and the way guys were coming, they were attacking. They were coming as hard as they could. We said it was, listen, it's going to be either feast or famine. And for the Vikings, it was feast all day because they really thought Dalvin wasn't who he was. Like, I don't know what they thought, but for me, watching Dalvin just run over defender after defender, like you're like, dude, did you really not think this kid was going to show up prepared, ready to just destroy you guys? You give him a 7-man box, like I don't know how you would have to defend that, but it's going to be tough. And they just didn't have the defense equipped to do it in a base personnel or in a sub personnel where they could play a 7-man box in the sub and still have their 2 high and be safe and still stop the run. If you can't do that, then we've said it before on this show, you are ruined because your base defense can't be out there the whole game because then you have Thielen and Diggs like, okay, now we're going to feast. And that's complimentary football. Hey, listen, we're going to throw Dalvin at you as much as we can. And right when you crack, we're going to go up top. And that's what and dude, Marshawn Lattimore looked like he was spun around 3 different times. Like, dude, where did Thielen go? Oh my God. And what a beautiful catch and throw too, right?
Yeah. It was Patrick Robinson because Lattimore got hurt.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
So it was taking advantage at the right time. And that's what I mean about when you go up against San Francisco, because my guess is they're going to say our front 7 is pretty darn good. And it looks like Quan Alexander is going to play. So another linebacker that they get back, Fred Warner, is a fantastic linebacker for the 49ers. And then they have the defensive front of guys who are all excellent. And so if they can stop Dalvin and keep the 2 safeties high, it's going to be tough for Cousins. He needs those big shots every once in a while. And I had the stat in my article that he only used play action on 13 out of 33. And aside from the one big throw to Thielen, he averaged 4 yards an attempt when using play action. So they did a great job of taking it away for most of the game. But when Dalvin got that 11-yard run, it seemed like the Saints said, oh, no, they're going to do this to us all the way down the field and win this game. And they said, we've got to load up the box on first down because we think Dalvin's going to run. And then they picked their spot. I think if they do that in San Francisco, you don't need 5 40-yard throws. You need 1 or 2 in a playoff game like this.
Absolutely, especially against a team that's playing really well. They hold the number 1 seed. You're going to go in, and it's going to be a slugfest. There's no question. They're going to get Quan back. They're going to get Jaworski Tart back. They're getting D Ford back. The one thing that scares me, and we just talked about it, defense wins championships. When you can put a sub package on the field in a playoff game against a Dalvin Cook offense and control the game, like, dude, you write your ticket. And that's why when you're looking at both sides of this, you're like, man, whichever defense can stay in sub the most and sustain the run and keep the quarterback under as much pressure without blitzing, like that's the team that's going to go to the Super Bowl. Whatever team wins this game is going to go to the Super Bowl. There's no question.
Yeah. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but
it's true.
Going 3 times on the road, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, if you beat the Niners in Levi Stadium at the number 1 seed, or whether they beat you, doesn't matter. These are the 2 top NFC teams right now. Dude, you can't tell me the Packers are really on your fearful list. Like, oh no. Or even the Seattle Seahawks, dude.
Like what?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Like those are not this game right now, this is going to be the biggest game before the Super Bowl. Like that's it. And that's why you're like, wow, these are two defenses that could legitimately don't even need a base defense. And then you think about the depth of guys that roll through. Look at the Vikings. Their depth players are showing up just as much as their star players are. Like that's incredible. And how Anthony Harris has been playing lately is lights out. Like that, I don't know how he doesn't get his name kind of thrown in like a defensive MVP. Like that, you're holding the title along with Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White. Like the three of you are like the three scariest dudes to throw around. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, tops in the NFL in interceptions and an incredible play to bring it in. My theory is that he's the only corner who can catch the ball. So, or I'm saying safety. I mean, like corners and safety. If you're the one guy who can actually catch it, boy, you're going to be
get
good.
them all.
The number of dropped interceptions per year
worst.
is hilarious and mind blowing.
That's the worst when you're on the sideline. You see a guy like catch it and he comes down, he drops. You're like, dude, what? You had one job and you couldn't do it.
That's why they play corner.
Like, dude, that's why I'm on defense. Like, yeah, you're
right. But Anthony Harris has no problem with that.
Incredible.
The only hesitation I would have, because I think if you're talking about not the quarterback position, just team versus team, 49ers, Vikings versus Seattle or versus Green Bay, I don't even think it's close that the 49ers and the Vikings are much better than both of those teams. However, when you're talking about the quarterback evening thing out, Rodgers had a bad game against Detroit, but he's still Aaron Rodgers and is capable of playing as well as anyone in the NFL. And Russell Wilson is just doing things that don't even make sense anymore.
Yeah, and DK.
I mean, just the way that Wilson played the other day was kind of to the score, doing exactly what he needed to do to win. And his deep ball accuracy has been unbelievable, and he can run around and make the plays that you see him make. I would look at it as not a guarantee that either one of these teams is going to the Super Bowl because of the opposing quarterbacks. It does give you a great shot, though. Is Green Bay going to beat a superior, talented team in Minnesota 3 times in a season when both of the first 2 games could have gone the Vikings' way? But let's focus on what they need to do next here to get there, because they barely got out of New Orleans. These swing passes and checkdowns to Dalvin Cook, Alex, I thought were massive. And if you want to get Kirk out of one of those little Kirk funks that he gets into where he looks anxious and nervous, well, a little swing pass for 19 yards to Dalvin Cook that got him to the goal line, I thought was a huge play in the game. There was another time where he was sort of in the pocket, like there's nothing there. And he finally got to his check down and hit Dalvin Cook. He breaks a tackle or two for a big gain. More of that is going to be required, and it's going to require Cousins to get through those progressions quick because this defensive line for the 49ers is for real.
Yeah, they don't need anybody to come other than the first 4 coming after you. I mean, you look at it, Bosa, you get D4 back. Now, D4 hasn't played in, 6 or 7 weeks? Like, how good that dude is really going to be, Dave? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you come back for your first game. Should I expect you to light up the field? No, but I expect you to still be a threat. So,
yeah,
let's say Bosa, DeForest, you got Eric Armstead. You still got Solomon Thomas, who's kind of scaring people. But you talk about these guys being able to rush and do whatever they want and then letting their linebackers drop. And this is going to be the best thing is when Dalvin does run these swing routes and you get the ball in his hands and with a head of steam going forward. Like when you can put the ball perfectly in his hands when he's rolling, dude, there's not a lot of people, maybe even 2 people that can stop him. And that's what's so scary is that, like you said, these quick screen passes that when we were normally watching it, like, God, who throws that? Stop throwing them. Like when you throw it to an effective running back, they turn into 19 yards. You're like, dude, that's a drive starter. That's how we get this thing going.
How about this for a stat? Throwing behind the line of scrimmage this year, Kirk Cousins averaged 8 yards an attempt, which is double what he averaged last year throwing behind the line of scrimmage. Because of Dalvin Cook, right? Breaking tackles and then getting momentum going for drives, which I do believe that momentum exists in a drive where the other team feels like they're on their heels and you feel like you can continue to run them over. Now, Dalvin's health, he was not super pleased to be asked about it again. And well, that's life, I guess, in the NFL. It's the playoffs. There's a lot of people there and you got to ask how they're feeling. But he looked great last week. He also touched the ball 1 million times. And I feel today, exactly 1 million. Today, I'm telling you, as a reporter at the game, I still feel the effects of being there on Sunday because it was such a crazy atmosphere and so much concentration that goes into it and long days and travel and everything else. Yep. I cannot imagine, and you know this, and I'd like you to tell me about it, what it is like to win the playoff game on the road and then the next week as you get prepared for the next one. It just has to be exhausting.
It is exhausting, especially because when you're going to a place like New Orleans, like I think of the times that we went out to Carolina and we won a playoff game, and then I think of the times that we went to Atlanta and won a playoff game. Those were long flights. I mean, the flight home was like 6 hours, 7 hours. You're like, dude, it is. I am exhausted, and then you have to turn around. Like the one thing that I can't stand is how these games can never really be fair because some games are going to end on Sunday and have to be played on Saturday. So you lose a day of preparing, which kind of sucks because these are the playoffs and you want these dudes at the top of their game, but it also kind of evens the playing field for a lot of people because it makes everybody have to cram a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. And it's kind of like, listen, natural talent is going to take over. And it's hard because when you win a playoff game, the emotions running through you is so because the whole game we always say it's just another game, it's just another game, and it's continuing to tell yourself that while you're playing because you like want to gut check yourself all the time, like dude, I'm doing it. If the 6-year-old version of myself could see me now, like this is what I always wanted to be standing here in Atlanta to go to the Super Bowl to win the game. I need Frank Gore to run right behind me, like dude. I'm crying because sometimes you get so emotional. You're like, dude, this is it. And you look over and other dudes are like, bro, this is it. Like, I'm with you, man. I feel you. We feel this. And it's all of a sudden you won and you're like, this is great. And they're like, now you got to play the best team in the NFC. You're like, oh my God, here we go. But that's what's so fun about it because it's so competitive that your body never really gets a time to come down. You constantly just stay up and you're on overdrive and you're just burning and your mind is constantly thinking about everybody on that team now and what they do, what's their moves, what are we going to do, how do we expose this team? Dude, it is like the greatest time of your life all rolled into like a month, and it's crazy chaotic because like you said, there's a million reporters there. Everybody's got a million stupid questions. You're like, dude, I've never seen this guy. Why is he here? Is he working for the other team? I don't know him. And you know, you have to be very wary of everybody around you and what you're telling people. And I remember like our meeting rooms where they would like lock and key them. They would lock a key and walk away and be like, don't let us out until we bang 3 times. Like it was like, dude, what are we doing? And they're like, we can't trust anybody. We have to keep this secret. And that was kind of the thing that made it more fun was that it was so secretive. And it's like, don't tell your wives either. We can't trust them. And I was like, oh God. I told my wife what we were doing the first play. I said, oh God.
Oh no. Oh no. Power, run left. Don't tell
anyone. Power.
God, Giro. Guess we'll find out if I need to divorce her. That's great. And going on the road and getting that win like they did.
Huge.
There's just an energy to the team that I guess now exists because they believe that it can happen. And going into that, the energy around the building was, we'll see if it can happen and we'll see what happens if it doesn't, was most of the conversation. And anybody who says that they don't hear what you're talking about, they do. And Zimmer is proof because he told Deion Sanders, I'm sick of hearing that I'm going to get fired when I've won all these games and everything else. So it's impossible to ignore. Everybody's got families. So even if you don't watch TV, you know, they're sending you the tweets or they're sending you the articles or whatever else it might be in 2019. But now with this team, they don't have that anymore. They have now, oh, wow, Kirk can actually win a playoff game. And look at this. I feel like it's a different energy. And this is not in my list of things to carry over, but it probably should have been, is the defiance on the offensive side to some extent, but also the understanding that this is still huge for everybody's life and careers.
Agree.
You know what I mean? Like to bring that same type of energy and defiance to San Francisco that they had in New Orleans.
I mean, I understand why people are like, you guys need to get off Kirk. Like, yeah, now after he did what he did down in New Orleans, dude, I am all about it. You've gotten over the hump. You've proven not only can you do a playoff game, but you can do it on the road in one of the toughest stadiums against one of the toughest opposing quarterbacks, and your team didn't even really flinch. Like, you guys just the whole game. There was times that, you stall out. Dude, it's a playoff football game. Like, I expect that. That times you're not going to convert a 3rd and 5. You're not going to convert a 3rd and 7. But when you can come out with the win, and not only that, but take the ball in overtime and march all the way down the field and throw it to Kyle Rudolph in the corner of the end zone to win the game, dude, you've earned that contract. You've earned that next contract. And not only that, but Zim has too, because there was question marks like, hey, what's going to happen now? The defensive secondary is a little muddled. We're not really sure. This is supposed to be a specialty, and it doesn't look very special. When you go down and stifle Drew Brees in his own house, like, dude, did you see him after the game? He was like crying. He was like, I can't believe they did that with like Andrew Sandejo and Xavier Rhodes and all. Dude, Mike's a genius. Yes, he's just earned that contract extension. So going forward, this team looks like really good. They look like a whole new energy, just the way you saw them break it down after the game. look completely different. And people can say, oh, we were all in on it before, dude, whatever. Now everybody's all in. Now everybody has to be like, yep, he did it. He won the game down there. He was extremely complimentary. He started off and it was like, oh boy, what's going to happen? But man, he came right out of that funk and he looked good.
And I've always thought, Alex, a major part of leadership for any quarterback and getting people behind them is you just have to prove it too. I mean, you can't be about potential. You can't be about numbers or anything else. You have to win to have that,
right.
which is why when I see analytics people who I am friends with and, talk a lot of sports and football with, when they mock the win-loss record and like, well, let's just wait though, because what does the locker room care about the most? They don't care if you threw for 14 touchdowns or 46 touchdowns. They care that you came through. They care that you won. They care that you were the guy in charge and you were calm in the overtime period and not throwing it to the other team.
Right.
It wouldn't have mattered if he threw for 400 yards. If they come up short, everyone would have said, well, it really wasn't good enough. And that's harsh, but that's how everyone inside of a locker room thinks. And to carry over that belief is important. And it's very few times, Alex, that we talk about a locker room, an organization having a weight lifted off by getting a huge win because it was such a legit win. It was not like, oh, well, you came back, but it was against Denver and whatever, Denver, right? I mean, it wasn't Denver. It was in that building, in that place. And I think it could ultimately, I could be wrong, be looked at as a turning point for Kirk Cousins, even for how he relates to everyone inside the locker room and how he's viewed even